This is the story of Jane Eyre, a girl who begins life with nothing, no beauty that turns heads, no fortune, no powerful family name, no one waiting to rescue her. And yet she becomes one of the strongest, strangest, and most unforgettable heroines in all of literature. Jane is orphaned almost from the beginning. She is sent to live with relatives who treat her less like a child, and more like an inconvenience. At Gateshead she grows up under cold eyes and cruel hands. Very early she learns that the world has little mercy for a girl who is poor, plain, and honest. But Jane has something more dangerous than beauty. She has a mind of her own. Even as a child she refuses to believe that suffering is the same thing as virtue. She feels injustice deeply, and she never forgets it. Then she is sent to Lowood School, a place meant to shape girls into obedience through hunger, humiliation, and discipline. It is bleak, harsh, nearly spirit-breaking. But this is where Jane begins to harden into herself. She learns endurance. She learns restraint. She learns how to survive without letting the world hollow her out. And in the middle of all that suffering, she also finds friendship, kindness, and the first real grief of her life. The kind of grief that does not simply wound you, but quietly remakes you. Then, just when her life seems destined to become one long corridor of duty and silence, Jane leaves Lowood and steps into the place that changes everything, Thornfield Hall. Thornfield is not just a house, it is a mood, a mystery, a shadow with walls. It stands isolated, grand and half-haunted, full of locked rooms, strange laughter, sudden silences, and the feeling that something is always being hidden just out of sight. Jane arrives there as a governess, a paid companion, educated enough to teach but never important enough to belong. She is caught between classes, between worlds, between being seen and being ignored. And then she meets Edward Rochester. He is not the kind of romantic hero novels usually offer. He is older, darker, abrupt, wounded, unpredictable. He can be tender one moment and unsettling the next. He does not shine, he burns. And what makes their connection so powerful is this. Jane does not fall for him because he is charming. She falls for him because, for the first time in her life, someone seems to speak to her mind as if it matters. He looks at her not as decoration, not as pity, but as presence. And Jane, who has been overlooked by the world, begins to feel visible. But Jane Eyre is not a simple love story. It never was. Because love in this novel is never allowed to exist without a test. Thornfield is full of secrets, and secrets in great houses do not stay buried forever. There are strange cries in the night. Fires started in darkness. A tension that keeps tightening beneath every conversation. The closer Jane moves toward happiness, the more the story begins to whisper that happiness may come at a terrible price. And when the truth finally breaks open, it does not just shock Jane, it tears the entire dream apart. That is what makes Jane Eyre so powerful. It gives us romance, yes, but it also gives us moral courage, because Jane does not only ask, "Whom do I love?" She asks the harder question, "What will I sacrifice to remain true to myself?" And that is where she becomes extraordinary. She is poor, but she will not sell her soul for comfort. She is in love, but she will not accept love on humiliating terms. She is lonely, but she will not trade dignity for belonging. Again and again, Jane is forced to choose between desire and self-respect. And again, she chooses the harder path. That is why she endures. Because Jane Eyre is not merely the story of a woman wanting to be loved. It is the story of a woman insisting that she has a soul equal to anyone else's. In a world that keeps trying to reduce her, to make her smaller, quieter, more grateful, more obedient, Jane refuses. She speaks. She feels. She judges. She resists. She loves deeply, but she does not disappear inside that love. And around her the novel keeps widening. It becomes a gothic mystery, a romance, a coming-of-age story, a spiritual struggle, a rebellion against class, gender, and silence itself. It asks what freedom means for a woman with no money. It asks whether passion can coexist with principle. It asks whether love can survive truth. By the time Jane's journey reaches its end, she is no longer the child at Gateshead, or the governess who first entered Thornfield. She has suffered, wandered, hungered, hoped, and lost. But she has also become something rare, fully herself. That is why Jane Eyre still feels alive. Because even now Jane does not speak like a character trapped in an old book. She speaks like someone we still recognize, someone who knows what it is to be underestimated, to long for love, to struggle for dignity, to walk away from what the heart wants because the soul demands more. This is the story of Jane Eyre, not the story of a damsel saved, Not the story of beauty rewarded, not the story of fate being kind. It is the story of a woman who had almost nothing, and still refused to become less than she was. And maybe that is why generations of readers never forget her, because Jane Eyre does not simply ask to be admired. She asks to be heard.